Amazing how resilient our bodies are, isn't it? Like what we could put them through and how quickly they can bounce back.
And that led to an extreme amount of weight gain. I'm talking 331.4 pounds,
mm,
close to 50% body fat.
Experiments and what works for them might be different. But what did you find? Where did you start? What did you find worked for you? And perhaps even more importantly, what did you find didn't work for you?
There are certain aspects of me that are truly passionate about helping people and saving people from themselves and encouraging people to reach higher and try to improve their health. If I know I'm going to go out to a nice restaurant with my wife, I'm going to plan ahead. I'm going to look at a menu. I'm going to choose the options I want. I'm not going to go crazy. I'll have a cocktail if I'd like. I don't do that often, but if I do, I can make it work and I can still fit it in. And I think people just need to realize that the all or nothing method needs to die.
Hello, my friends, and welcome, welcome, welcome. Today, I am so excited because I have a very special guest, Jonathan Wiseman, who's here from OBF Gyms. What's special about him is that he's gone through a total transformation in his health, and I'm going to unpack that. And this is going to be new information for me because Jonathan and I haven't spoken about his journey. I've been following him online, and we've known each other for many, many years through a mutual friend of ours and mentor, Charles Poliquin. And so that's how we initially met, and we've done some training together and cool things together. However, it's been a while since I've seen Jonathan in person, and over the last year, I've been following his journey and story, and he's here to share with you and reveal to you a transformation that he's gone through. And I want to unpack that. I want to learn what he did, what was the impetus for him to start the transformation, what was the, kind of that spark that lit inside of him to create the changes that he has. And I'm hoping that there's some lessons in here for all of you to take away. So without further ado, welcome, Jonathan. Thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to chatting.
Thank you. Well, just before we started recording, we talked about the date that everything started for you. So you're a personal trainer. You own a very successful boutique training studio called OBF Gyms, and I've been down there. It's a beautiful spot. I'm not sure if you've moved since then, but wonderful location and great energy, great crew. And one of the things that you've done is you've taken a lot of training. You've trained a lot of athletes and individuals to get into peak shape and peak performance. And then it was your turn. So I think it was March 13th, you said 2024, you just made a decision. So I'd love to know what sparked that decision for you.
Yeah, of course. Before I kind of explain the spark, I want to kind of briefly give like a frame of reference of where I was and then what happened and then where
Sure.
it came from, right? So, I've been doing this for close to 19 years as far as personal training. And, like you've mentioned, we both mentored under and worked closely with Charles Poliquin. So we have a very, in-depth level of knowledge and understanding on certain training methods and nutritional strategies to help people change, right? It doesn't always mean you're implementing them yourself. And I want to separate the two because it's so strange. The last 5 years for me, my mind was still there when it came to the belief structure, the habits and behaviors of what healthy nutrition were and what training and regulating your health and hormonal health really meant, to the point where obviously I was still able to successfully help people and train them, even though during that time I wasn't doing it myself. And that led to an extreme amount of weight gain. I'm talking 331.4 pounds,
Mm.
close to 50% body fat. My blood pressure was 226 over 180.
Wow.
Like hypertensive crisis level. I could have died at any moment of an aneurysm, but I was hiding away from that, right? And so it's interesting again, like I would lay in bed and I would think to myself about workouts. Like I was literally thinking about workouts, even though I wasn't doing them. And so it was almost like something inside of me was sabotaging me from making the habits and behaviors that I knew would save me occur. It was something deep down wasn't allowing that to happen. And it's a strange kind of place to be. But I think eventually, after having children and, seeing where my health was leading and the type of person I was becoming, I came to the conclusion that like on March 13th, I decided, you know what? I have an in-body scanner at my gym. It's time to step on and just let's see where you're at, you know? So I stepped on and I saw the numbers and I was not surprised, but it's still an important number to see because it tells you the truth. And if you don't have people in your life that are willing to tell you the truth, then it's really easy to lie to yourself, right? And
Mm.
while I have a very special people in my life, no one told me the truth. I had to kind of tell myself that truth. And so I stepped on the scale, I saw what I saw, and I said to myself, you know what, John, um, you're not going to live very long on this path, and no one's going to come to save you. No one's coming to save you. You have to do it yourself. And so that was the moment, and that was the spark for me that kind of started me on the path of looking for the path. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Yeah. So that's kind of what sparked it, in my opinion.
So I'm curious, like speaking of the people around you that weren't telling you the truth, why do you think that was?
I think I give off a very dominating aura, and I don't mean to do it in a malicious way. And I think my energy really is matter of fact. It's generally this is what I think and this is what I expect. And so with that, I think I create within my environment, unfortunately, people who may sometimes be fearful of being open and transparent with me. And with that comes the challenges of not always knowing the truth. And so it can cause a lot of, communicative issues or barriers that I have to kind of deal with on my own, trying to figure out what is really happening and why. And so, it starts with me at the end of the day, right? It's not on anyone else to tell me what's actually going on. I have to take ownership no matter what. And so it started with me. And I think since I've started kind of looking at the reality of where things were, it has helped a lot of people in my life start to be more open and honest with me because they saw that I took a very open and honest approach to how I decided to start coaching myself throughout that process. I think they saw me in my real in-depth process of like, how do I talk to myself and how do I encourage change? And I think it's inspired a lot of people in my circle to look at themselves as well and start to be honest with themselves as well. So I think over time, becoming the person I'm supposed to be, it has helped influence my circle a little bit more. So it's a strange kind of conundrum to find yourself in. It doesn't always mean you're surrounded by the wrong people. Sometimes it means that you're giving off the wrong energy.
I get accused of being very intimidating myself.
Yeah.
And my wife tells me that she's like, people find you intimidating. I'm like, really? Like they can come to me with anything and I'll always respond with love and a smile on my face. Maybe it's the beard. I don't know what it is, but or maybe it's just because we take our work really seriously
Yeah.
that it might make it intimidating for people to approach us. And I think as a leader, as a servant leader, softening our heart is one of the most important things that we can give our team members and showing them another side of us. And it sounds like that's what you did is you showed people your truer self, not the story that they had made up about you being intimidating or difficult to communicate with.
It's an interesting perspective because for me, I think the opposite had to occur, to be completely honest. I think, and I'm not trying to come off in any way sounding like a brutal type of person, but I softened myself up quite a bit for the last 5 years
Mm,
in the essence of trying to become a better leader. And what I found is it wasn't who I was. You know what I
mm,
mean? And I wasn't giving off that sense of truly me. And I think people maybe could have sensed that, and maybe I sensed it as well. But I figured, this is who I need to become if I want to be the leader for my business that I think I'm supposed to be. But since going through this transformation, it's kind of given me a lot of my confidence back in being who I am and accepting both my, the inner light, but also the inner darkness, right?
mm.
There's certain aspects of me that are truly passionate about helping people and saving people from themselves and encouraging people to reach higher and try to improve their health. But when it comes to other parts of who I am, um, I think I am an aggressive person, and I don't mean that again in a malicious way, but I'm aggressive towards my goals. I'm aggressive towards my business. I'm aggressive towards protecting what I love, right? And I don't think I was doing that at the level that is truly reflective of who I am. I think I've hardened up a little bit over the last 12 months throughout the
Mm,
transformation. I've gained a little bit of that, that testosterone umph back. So while there is a bit of a maybe there was a softer approach initially, I think what's happening is it's showing a bit of a stronger approach. And maybe in that sense, people are feeling a little bit safer around me because they're sensing that leader's back,
mm.
And so it's really a strange. It's like a catch-22. You think being a kinder, gentler soul oftentimes is what is necessary, but it didn't do me the justice. It didn't do me the service that I thought it would have. To be completely honest.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like leading up, you said it was about a 5-year period where, you know, that led up to this, moment last year. What exactly happened? Was there an event that occurred? I mean, I know COVID happened for everybody, but was there something that happened in your life that caused that to occur?
Yeah, my mother had been fighting breast cancer for a very long time, and well, number one, the wife and I, we decided to get married, and that happened in 2017 in July, which was obviously a blessing. Shortly after, my mother started to kind of move downhill with her health, and I would say by 2019 July, same month, unfortunately she passed away, and that was a pretty challenging time in my life. I had lost my father about seven, maybe 8 years earlier to cancer as well. And so
Mm,
losing both my parents pretty early really challenged my will to kind of strive to become that version of myself that I was always meant to be. Right. It really pushed me back. And then COVID happened shortly after, like right when my mom passed away. I pretty much did nosedive into business and just thought, if I just dig in and push and succeed, I can ignore the pain, right? And so that's exactly what I did. I opened up a second gym within 4 months of her passing away. 4 months later, COVID happened, lockdowns. Um, 2.5 years in, you're trying to keep two gyms and 25 people happy. It was a lot of stress.
mm,
Eventually, I got to a point where I just wasn't prioritizing anything in relation to my happiness or my health. I was pretty much hiding. I just had a kid, my first son, and I wasn't as connected to him and my wife as I thought I would feel in that time. And I think again because I was dealing with grief still, so I kind of hid away and just like I became a very quiet, reclusive version of myself and slowly just slipped. It's called slippage, right? It's like, you know, it happens slowly and then it happens all at once. And
mm.
that's kind of what happened. And luckily for me, I didn't I didn't slide all the way because I think it wouldn't have taken a lot more to slide into a situation that could have led me up in a hospital, unfortunately.
It's amazing how resilient our bodies are, isn't it? Like what we can put them through and how quickly they can bounce back. And
It gives you a true sense of how strong and how powerful we can be, right?
I love that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. My condolences, to you. And never easy to lose your parents at any age, but
Yeah, of
to lose them, at such a leading up to such a challenging time for everybody.
course.
And did your mom get to meet your son?
Unfortunately not. He was born July as well, so a year after she passed away. So
Okay.
but you know what, like he's got so many similarities to her in how he looked and how he acts, and I have a feeling there's a little bit of her in him for sure. So
Yeah.
she's technically met him, you know what I mean? Yeah.
It's a blessing to have children, and especially if they remind you of people that you love and care about.
100%.
So I'm curious from kind of a biological standpoint and kind of physiological standpoint, what do you think aside from the stress and some of the things you described? I would imagine there was a change in your dietary patterns, exercise patterns. Like, what do you think led to the dramatic weight gain that you experienced?
um the dramatic weight gain was likely stress related, running the business and trying to figure out initially how to run a business, right? Going through that whole process, like I made the decision early on to say, listen, my training and my nutrition might suffer a little bit. My relationships might suffer a little bit because I'm going to put all my energy into this to make sure it succeeds. And then I can find balance after. And maybe that works, but it didn't work for me. And I think in order for me to truly be passionate about this business, I have to be passionate about it in reflection to how it impacts me.
Mm-hmm.
You lose that, your whole reason of why you generally get started in this kind of realm in this industry eventually breaks down, right? And so, I think it was a lot of stress. Um, and again, like for me, I think I do well in high pressure environments. If I have people that I know are going to hold me accountable, um, I don't break. I just keep going. I show up. But when I know that no one's watching, it
Mm.
becomes easier to let off the gas. And I think that's why I had to become that person who's always watching, right? And that's I think the biggest change that I've experienced over the last years. I I approached this transformation differently than I've ever approached taking care of myself. And I did it from a top-down viewpoint as opposed to from an internal viewpoint where I was like experiencing it was more like I was looking at myself like a scientist. I was going, let's do this, see the reaction. Okay, check, let's do that. No reaction. Avoid that, So I took it very, very slowly, very, very methodically, and I allowed myself the chance to do this slowly to rebuild behaviors and habits, so I can create a foundation that I could rely on for the rest of my life. And so I think realistically, I was the all or nothing type. And when life no longer allowed that, no longer allowed the all, it became nothing. There was no middle ground.
Mm.
Yeah.
So walk us through some of those experiments. Like where did you start
Yeah.
and what did you find? Of course, everyone's experiments and what works for them might be different, but what did you find? Where did you start? What did you find worked for you? And perhaps even more importantly, what did you find didn't work for you?
Yeah. So I started really simple. I made the conscious decision to start simple. I thought, let's find the low hanging fruit. What is one thing I know I can do without failure that whether or not it leads to the result, it's going to put me on the path that will allow me to make other important decisions, right? So the decision to step on the scale, the initial time on the in-body scan was backed by the thought process that once I know what this is, I can track data and then start to adjust. So I had my initial weight, and then I decided, okay, so with this initial weight, I'm going to figure out what my basal metabolic rate is. I'm going to implement my total daily energy expenditure. I'm going to do a 15% caloric deficit, and that's it. And I'm going to track that for 7 days, and that's it. I don't care what I eat. I don't care if I eat frequently throughout the day or with one meal. I don't care if I hit my protein. I was just simply going to start there. And so I did that for 7 days, stepped on the scale, and I was down 12 pounds.
Wow.
That's all I needed. Once I saw that, it was on. I was like, okay, I can reverse this. I've got just from this one small thing with no real control, I've got it. And so that was stage one, and I followed those calories for a couple of weeks and just kept losing a lot of weight. I felt great. I felt like I was starting to gain control. And then I decided, you know what? Let's throw in some workouts. I've been missing workouts for so long, and I definitely need to get my strength and my cardio back. So I started very small. I did what I knew would not overly challenge me mentally or physically. I picked 2 days and just did 30-minute full body workouts with a pair of dumbbells in my basement. I kept it super simple. Again, my goal was not to cripple myself, not to stress the system, just get blood flowing, start to fall in love with it again. Did that for a week or two, kept seeing results. And then I thought to myself, okay, you know what? Workouts are fun. I'm probably going to keep this up. I'm still seeing results. But if I'm working out, I can't undereat protein. So I started to work on increasing my protein intake. And while maintaining my caloric intake, I slowly built my protein up bit by bit. And after 2 weeks, I was hitting a really respectable protein intake, 1 gram per pound of my ideal body weight, essentially. And I pretty much just did that for another few weeks. Started to see fat specifically being what was lost, and muscle mass was starting to slowly build. And so that continued to build my momentum. And, I'm probably 4 weeks in at this point, 6 weeks in, and bit by bit, I just start to optimize. I start to add in a third workout. I eventually start to do infrared saunas once a week. Eventually, I work towards 4 workouts, and then I'm eating 3 or 4 square meals a day. And then eventually, I'm taking a post workout shake. Eventually, I'm implementing digestive enzymes. Then eventually, omega 3s. We're talking like 6 months in now. And 6 months in, I'm doing 3 to 4 workouts a week, 1 hour each. I very slowly built up to it. And now I have a full on home gym that is
Mm.
all Atlantis. Like literally, I've rebuilt my gym downtown at home so I can train whenever I want. And so now there's no excuses. I've rebuilt my entire lifestyle. I've even rebuilt my house because of this, right? And
Mm.
so I'm now training 4 days a week. It's 12 months in. I'm doing cardio post workout, 1 hit a day, or 1 hit a week. I'm doing 2 infrared saunas. My nutrition is still dialed in. Like I've never been this consistent with my nutrition in my entire life. And it's super easy for me now because I did it in a way that allowed me to get there over time as opposed to immediately. Like the first couple of months, every week, every Friday, I would have a cheat meal. I would just load up on 2 to 3,000 extra calories because I knew if that meant, even if I knew that meant I would not see results the next week, I was okay with it because I knew I needed it to get past the hump of doing what I was doing. And eventually that became every 2 weeks. Then it became once a month. Then it became once every 3 months. And eventually it's not even cheat meals anymore because now how I look at it is I can just factor it into my calories. If I know I'm going to go out to a nice restaurant with my wife, I'm going to plan ahead. I'm going to look at the menu. I'm going to choose the options I want. I'm not going to go crazy. I'll have a cocktail if I'd like. I don't do that often, but if I do, I can make it work and I can still fit it in. And I think people just need to realize that the all or nothing method needs to die. You need to
Mm.
find a path that is steady, and you need to find a path that allows you to take that one step in front of the other um, towards the methods that you can commit to, and allow the commitment that you can achieve and stack your wins. Right, the more days you are winning, the more momentum you're going to have. That's going to start to push you towards choosing bigger challenges. And eventually, what's going to happen is the amount of momentum behind you is going to be so powerful. It's going to wash out anything in front of you. And it's just going to be a beautiful path forward. And that's kind of what I've experienced. And not to say I haven't had moments where, I wouldn't see much change in over 4 weeks. I just kept going because I knew that change isn't always just what you see on the scale. There's a lot of change that's happening inside physically and also mentally. Like one of the benefits I like to see from this is how long can I keep doing the same thing while seeing no results?
Mm.
That to me is called mental strength and willpower. I like that benefit too. And so give it to me. You know what I mean? And so
Mm-hmm.
there's just so many different cool ways of looking at this. And I feel like my mind's truly changed in a way of how I approach this. And now my clients are seeing such a big difference in my coaching mentality, my trainers, and how I talk to them and give them advice on how they can help their clients. It really, really has been a massive change.
I love that. So it's like building a snowball or rolling a snowball, right? Start small and then it eventually becomes this, you
Yeah,
know, uh, huge snowball that where the results are really showing. So you
totally.
talked about how it's affected your coaching with your clients. Maybe paint us a picture of, or in contrast, the difference between before and now, like how your coaching has shifted.
Yeah. So when I first started as a coach, I was in great shape, but again, living that all or nothing kind of mindset and mentality, right? So I was young, very confident, maybe too confident. And with that, it was again my way or the highway. It was like, do this, no excuses. And, I wasn't married, no mortgage, no kids, no business. I didn't understand that life throws left and right hooks and there's nothing you can do about it. You just got to take it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
back then, while I still got great results, I tend to do better with younger people. because they also did not have the same responsibilities. And as I've aged up, and so has my clientele, um, I've had to adjust because I've seen what real life actually is. And so I have to take into consideration that that happens to other people as well. So finding methods that allow us to still move forward without it in a way that's flexible, right? And again, that doesn't necessarily mean I had been doing it myself. As we previously discussed, 5 years, I was a mess. But I was still coaching people and I was still giving them partly the all or nothing mindset, but also partly the flexible kind of reality of things. And I think as I've gone through this transformation, I didn't even have to say anything. I think my clients just saw it. They watched. I would be very transparent with them about what I'm going through and what I'm doing. And obviously they saw it. They're like, holy crap, what's going on with you? You look so different every single month. It's, you know, like it's obviously a big change. And so I think that inspired a lot of them. And I think it just leads to how important it is as a personal trainer or a strength coach or a practitioner that we remember that we are essentially leaders and guides. We need to inspire change. In order to do that, we have to be the change, right? We have to show by action and by devotion to that action. And I've always told my clients that we are not the hero of their journey. They are. We're
Mm.
the guide. Okay. But there's really no better way to show someone the path than to take the path. And so I think me simply taking the path and still taking that path, and them also showing me how I do it without avoiding the challenges of life is being a really massive benefit to them because they've seen like, okay, when when his kids wake him up in the middle of the night and he doesn't sleep for the rest of the day, what does he do to adjust? Or if his kids are sick and or if he's sick and what how does he adjust his training to offset that? Or if you haven't had time to go grocery shopping and you're out of everything you need, is there a path forward? Can you make do with what you have? And if so, how can you be intelligent about that? And there's so many different little things and bits and pieces that people need to pick up by just experimenting and experiencing it. But again, luckily for a lot of people, if you can hire an experienced trainer who's gone through it themselves, then you don't have to do the experiments. The study is done. You just have to take the steps, and those steps are generally going to be based off of where you're at, right, and who you are mentally, and yeah, I think what has truly changed my coaching style is not a sense of patience. It's more so a sense of understanding, and it's like I understand that you have your own idea of what optimal is. And I'm not going to dictate what that is. I'm not going to tell you what optimal is. We're going to find out what that is together for you. And then we're going to look at what are the low hanging fruits that we can implement. What are those? And then let's just try to create some accountability about those actions. And simply from there, can those actions turn into behaviors and habits that lead to greater momentum, right? And can that push you? It could be something as simple as like, can we drink more water this week? Or can you buy a water bottle, right? Like something as simple as that. Or can you, if someone's absolutely anti-change with nutrition, all right, cool. Can you show up for every one of your workouts this week? It's like just find the one thing and then celebrate the win, right? Whether they saw results or did amazing, it doesn't matter. If they showed up for 3 sessions, they're on the path. So I think helping my clients understand that has helped them find bits and pieces of confidence that maybe they've always felt like they were failing, but now they're realizing that they're stacking wins, every single week.
Yeah, it's so important, right? Like just making sure that all or none is really what gets people because they might have a bad breakfast and they think that they can't eat healthy the rest of the day, and then that turns into a week and turns into a month and they fall off. So it's great that you're holding space for them to identify what are the other opportunities for them to win in that day.
Exactly.
What did you find? I'm curious that didn't work. Like, what were some of your experiments that you didn't find had a positive benefit for you?
Overtraining, that was a big one. So just pushing and not listening to my body if the volume or the intensity of the program I wasn't recovering well enough from. And I wouldn't say this has happened often over the last 12 months, but there's probably been 2 months where one workout program specifically, I found I just got sick. I just kept getting smoked. It was depressing my immune system. And then the most recent one I just finished, um, I'm not a spring chicken anymore, right? I'm going to turn 40 soon, and my body also went through hell for the last 5 years. So there's that, and so my recovery abilities may not be where they used to. So I was noticing some days I'm like, oh, I don't feel too good. I feel like if I push it too much, I'm gonna blow my back out. Or what the hell was that in my right calf? That did not feel right. Maybe I should
Hmm.
stop squat set. And so I need to be more comfortable with pulling back the volume when my body's telling me to, and I needed to be more comfortable with if I'm not responding to this program in a way that's beneficial, I'm going to change it, and that's okay. I'd rather not adapt poorly and get injured because I can't afford to be injured right now. So I think just taking it slow and allowing my body to speak to me is an important lesson I've had to learn. Where back in the day I would just push through. So the programming, the intensity, how hard I can train, I had to take that very, very slowly. And sometimes I would rush into it and overtrain much easier than I've ever experienced in my life. I used to be able to do 2 workouts a day without any issue. And now it's like if I do an extra 10 minutes, something bad's gonna happen. So I've had to learn to listen. And but you know what, the progress has been pretty good. Another interesting thing is uh, I can't build muscles nearly as fast as I used to. I used to like in 1 year I'd be able to pack on, and just feel like a beast. And now it's like, ugh, I might get one third of that if I'm lucky. So again, I'm no longer chasing. I'm just going to take the path slow and steady, and do this for different reasons. I'm not chasing muscle. I'm not chasing leanness. I'm chasing health. I want to be healthy. I want to be capable. I want to be able to run with my kids. I want to be able to protect my children. I want to be able to show up for them. And that's it. That's all I'm really training for now. So having different goals has really helped me change the level of intensity and the standards I've had for saying, listen, push through. I don't push through anymore. I listen.
Love that. Speaking of recovery, aside from your own intuition and self-awareness, are you using wearables or anything to kind of track your recovery levels?
No, the only thing I do, interestingly enough, is I use a gripper, like a hand grip at home. I have like a wall of grip tools in my basement. I'm a nerd when it comes to like weight training equipment. So that's what I spend my money on. And I will sometimes just go in the basement, grab it, and I'll squeeze it a couple times. Like, oh, that feels really, really challenging compared to like if I could normally smack out 15 reps. I'm like, what the hell? Six feels like a 6 RM. And my hands feel creaky and it just doesn't feel right. I know my nervous system's shot because your grip is directly in relation to your nervous system. So
Hmm.
like, your ability to produce force in your hands is neural output. It's not so much strength. So I can tell right away from that if I'm starting to get smoked in my nervous system, and that's generally when I'll pull back. So I find that has been very helpful as far as like the only tool I'm using right now to test. Other than that, I'll test my blood pressure. Um, yeah, those are my two methods right now.
Cool. Speaking of blood pressure, has it normalized now since the journey started?
16/57.
All right,
Pretty low.
great. um, I know that Charles was, very influential for both of us, and one of the things that he really talked about was appropriate supplementation. And you did mention, fish oil and things like and protein shakes and things like that. Are there any other supplements that you found to be beneficial?
Yeah. So again, I started small. I've always been a fan of supplements, but I did start small. And I started small with everything that I did through the last 12 months. I just did one thing at a time, and I wanted to see if I could do it before I would commit all the way in. So I started with digestive enzymes to help my digestive system, reduce bloating, stuff like that. After that, I incorporated omega 3s to help with inflammation and insulin sensitivity and just regulate my blood sugar more effectively. After that, I incorporated zinc. I did feel like my testosterone levels weren't where they used to be. So I started doing zinc supplementation, and I do feel like that's made a massive difference. Magnesium. I actually have never stopped magnesium. Magnesium's always been a go-to for me,
Hmm.
especially anytime it really helps calm my nervous system, helps me get into good, really, really solid deep sleeps. So that's actually one thing that never struggled throughout this whole experience is my sleeps. And it's because I feel like magnesium's really been an amazing tool for me. Then I started incorporating NAC. I did that because I kept getting sick during COVID lockdowns, and I'd get this really long, like 6 to 8 week cough after I recover, and it was brutal and super annoying. So I researched NAC and I saw its effects on the lungs and how it can clear out phlegm and things like that. So I started supplementing with it, and that made a really big difference and it made me feel a lot better. Also helped me detoxify a lot more effectively. So I started taking that regularly. Then, so that's my like top five. I do vitamin D, D3 with K2 as well, especially during the winters. So I'm doing it right now. So it's my whole family. Uh, Now, as far as like my intra workout and post workout supplementation, we do, or I do amino acids and electrolytes during my workout. And this is overkill. I do a post workout shake as well, which is probably not necessary if I'm doing amino acids, but I don't care.
Hmm.
And also, I enjoy the post workout shake. It's yummy, so I'm going to do it. It helps me hit my protein overall. So I do 2 scoops of protein powder. I usually cycle between a hydrolyzed beef protein and a high quality whey protein isolate. So when one runs out, I'll cycle on the other. So right now I'm doing whey protein. I don't experience any digestive issues with it. I'm taking that with a tablespoon of glutamine, a teaspoon of glycine, and I do that also with a teaspoon of creatine. And that's pretty much my supplement stack. I've been religious about it for the last probably 5 months. I don't think I've missed a day. And that feels good too, knowing that I'm though, because like that's an easy way to win, right? Like
Hmm.
just taking a pill. And that's something I can do every single day. And every little win I can get out of the day makes tomorrow so much stronger for me. It's if certain things slip, again, it doesn't take a lot to slip every single day a little bit until all of a sudden you notice the big difference. So the more wins I can get, the more I'll take, and I try to find as many as I possibly can. I find that that's been really helpful.
I love that. So we've talked a lot about your physical transformation. I'm curious, I see a bunch of books behind you. Were there any things that you did to kind of up level your mental game? Books that you read, mentors that you hired, or podcasts that you listened to?
It's funny you bring that up because that just reminded me. I think one of the things that also really helped me flip the switch in my mind is starting in January in 2024, I made the decision to start reading and listening to more audiobooks because I was like, you know what? I've been doing courses only. And I have not read any books in like 8 years, which um, with the amount of ADHD, I'm talking vicious ADHD that I have, it's a no brainer that sitting down quietly reading a book is not an easy task for me.
Hmm.
But audiobooks is quite easy, and I was traveling downtown to the gym every day, Monday to Friday. So I'm talking, I'm on the train for an hour there and an hour back. That's 2 hours of time I could be listening to an audiobook while doing emails and things like that. So I figured might as well. So I started listening to books, started reading more books, and since January 2024, I'm at like 90 books now so far. So that is like more books than I've ever read in my life, and I've done that in 15 months. So I think that also has been helpful because it's again you're winning, right?
Hmm.
You're learning and you're revitalizing that love for wanting to learn and uh, reading more books on nutrition, more books on training, and more books on you know just up leveling. We're leveling up. And one of the books that I think I read initially was Dr. Gabrielle Lyon's book called Forever Strong. So I read that book and just going through the really cool information she was explaining about protein intake and working out and all the cool impacts of how muscle impacts your body. I was just like, what the hell? Like, this is way, way cooler than I ever thought muscle truly was. And I think that honestly triggered me wanting to start lifting again.
Mm.
It wasn't like I should start training to build bigger biceps and lose fat. No, it was like, so I don't get as sick as often. Let's go release some myokines with some muscular contraction, or let's go get the mTOR pathway activated, or let's go get um, like contraction derived glucose uptake so I can stabilize my blood sugar, right? Like it was interesting. I was like starting to take action, but based off of a whole different reasoning. Training used to be about being strong for me and looking good. Now it's about like optimize how my body functions in a way that will keep me alive for another 20 years, right? Plus, obviously. And so her book probably was one of the biggest factors for me starting to work out again. So I'm very thankful for that book. It's an incredible read. I recommend it to anyone and everyone. That was a solid book. Another really good one was Atomic Habits by James Clear. I really
Hmm.
loved that one. The Mountain Is You was fantastic. That was really inspiring for overcoming those like kind of like blocks that we put in front of ourselves. Um, there's been so many. I really liked what was that book? Please give me a sec. There's one more I really want to recommend. I'm just gonna take a look through my Audible account. Give me a second.
Sure. Take your time.
Um, what it was it? It's called Energize. I love that book. It was so good. Really cool insights in that. Um, also,
Who's the author of that again?
let me see.
I think I have that book.
It was surprisingly good. It's by Simon Alexander Ong.
Okay. I'll have to check.
Really
I'll
good
have to
book,
look at my Audible library. I believe I have it.
for sure. And then another really good one was the let's see. See, and now you got me in this. I'm just gonna go through all my books. um, Listen, like there's been so many really good books that have made an impact on my mental health, my mindset, and I think just being in the habit of doing something that kind of like expands your mind is really
Hmm.
valuable because you are more open to learning, you're more open to new ideas, you're not closed off, right? You're not getting stuck in the way you live your life and the way you perceive your life. So I think me getting back to that realm of just always intaking information really helped me start to be a little bit more open around how I analyze my life, as opposed to it just being very rigid and unbendable, right? And I want to be much more flexible, and I want to be a lot more able to flow with reality and how things happen, and being able to adjust with with everything, right? Like whatever stresses are going to come, I want to be able to handle it. I've got kids that rely on me, and I can't break easily, So
Hmm.
I think books were a really strong kind of experience as far as like what was one other thing I added into my lifestyle. That was an easy one and a powerful one, I think.
Thank you for sharing. I know you've talked quite a bit about, resilience and, you know, not just the immune system, but mental resilience. I'm curious, do you have a meditation practice or a way to kind of soothe or regulate your nervous system that you found works for you?
Yeah, I think I'm very I'm a very grateful person. I often find myself laying in bed in the pitch black before I fall asleep, praying, or um, just talking to myself about how grateful I am to be alive, how grateful and lucky I am to, be married to who I'm married to, or to have healthy, beautiful children, and be able to own a business that I love and be able to do what I love. I think it's a very special life I'm living, and I know that. And so I'm very grateful. And I think I spend a lot more time in that headspace than anything else.
Mm.
Even when I'm walking to work, I'll find myself looking up at the sky and saying those things in my head, almost like, and to be honest, I don't know if it's I don't know if it's only gratefulness. I think I might have some OCD as well. I think I get these terms and phrases stuck in my mind where I say them over and over and over millions of times a day. And I think it's because I actually don't have an inner dialogue. So I think it's about 40% of people out there don't have an inner voice. I don't have one. And I didn't realize I didn't have one until I spoke to someone who was like a specialist in ADHD. And I realized I talk to myself, but when I'm talking, my mouth is moving. I'm just doing it quietly, right? Um, I'm actually my inner dialogue. And so I have this like obsessive compulsive kind of phrase that I'll say over and over. And once I catch it, I'll say it a million times for a year. And then it usually evolves into something else. And it just keeps changing. And yeah, those generally, luckily for me, the phrases are good. The phrases are very productive and very beneficial. Although sometimes they can be time consuming mentally, right? Like I'm spending more time saying those things in my mind than I'm thinking. But I think that's been an interesting kind of way that my brain has just randomly hacked my nervous system. It's like almost like a forced reboot every single time I say it. It just takes me out of whatever stressed state I might be in. And by all means, when I get stressed out, I get stressed out just like anyone else, and I
Mm.
can overreact. And but again, it's like I'm trying to not hide from who I am. I know that I've got the light inside of me, and I know I've got the darkness inside of me. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make my light shine brighter, but I'm also trying to learn how to use my darkness. You know what I mean? I'm
Hmm.
not from it. There's bits and pieces of it when used wisely can benefit anyone. You just don't use it maliciously, and you don't use it in a way that can harm. You use it in a way that potentially make you a more powerful version of yourself. And so I'm not hiding from that. And so when it comes to like meditative practices or ways to regulate my nervous system, I think I'm forced to do it just the way my brain is wired. Otherwise,
Mm.
I don't think I'd be a very mentally healthy person. I really do like the infrared sauna, hopping in there for 35 minutes and trying not to pass out from the heat really helps me calm myself down. The workouts, believe it or not, are very calming. They always make me feel very, very at peace when I'm done. And when I'm training, I'm having a lot of fun. I'm smiling. I'm often watching something funny on TV. So it's just a nice break. But when it comes to like meditation in itself, I used to do meditation a lot guided. Um, I think I got a lot of great value from that. And I recommend it to a lot of people all the time. But I think just the way my mind works, it's like it's almost like forced calmness.
Hmm.
Otherwise I just go off the rails.
Yeah, and what works for one person is going to be different than what works for somebody else, right? We just have to find what that is for us. Um, Speaking of the inner voice, I recently did an ayahuasca journey, and I always had this inner chatter in my head.
Yeah.
And sometimes the stories would serve me, and sometimes they wouldn't, and most of the times they would cause me to play small,
Yeah.
right? Because it's like, who are you? Why, who are you to do this? Or this isn't for you. And since doing the journey, that voice is turned off. So had you said this, 2 weeks ago, I wouldn't have even known what you were talking about because I thought everyone had that voice in their head. And now that it's gone, it's just brought so much inner peace for me.
Yeah.
And I used to, my guilty pleasure would be watching YouTube videos. And I realized that I was trying to distract myself from that inner voice. And the only way for me to do that would be to keep my brain occupied with something else. And, I'd start binge watching like podcast episodes or little, YouTube, not shorts, but like short clips from podcasts and, 10-minute clips here and there. And it would just start adding up. And while I was learning things, I realized that I was, just more distracting myself.
Yeah.
And now I feel like now that chatter is gone, I can go more inwards, and that's been super helpful for me. So I appreciate you sharing, your process and what works for you. And I love the fact that you can get in this loop of gratitude and just say the same thing a million times over. I find that I'm sometimes like that with music. So I'll
Yeah.
find a song I like that takes me back to a specific time in my life or a moment or a memory, and I'll just keep playing it over and over and over again. It drives my son and my wife nuts. It's like, what's wrong with this guy? But I'm in bliss when I'm there. So we got to find what works for us.
100%. And it's funny you say that because um, while you have, managed to find that inner peace from the quiet, right? Because of my ADHD, the quiet isn't so peaceful, right?
Mm.
Because it just means that I observe more, and that is what ADHD is. It's too much information. I have access to just too much, and I'm processing it all. So having that silence in my mind forces me to process more. So I think one of the reasons why I have that recurring verbiage that I'm always saying, luckily for me, it's positive words of affirmation or praying, things like that. But because of that, I think it's because the silence is overwhelming because of the
Mm.
amount of information that my brain's always just paying attention to. So it's like you and I both have kind of a similar experience, but on the different ends or the different spectrums. It's really, really interesting to hear.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I know that you still have two gym locations, right?
We have one. During the lockdowns, we decided to sell off the new one that we opened. We
Okay.
opened 4 months before closures happened, and we held on to it for about a year and a half. But it didn't make financial sense for the business to keep losing money every month, so we decided to.
Okay. And that makes total sense. So tell me how people can learn more about the work that you're doing. I don't know if this sounds like you might want to write to me, it sounds like you might want to write a book about this or share this story far and wide, because I know there's lots of value that you can add for people who are, feeling stuck, whether it's with their weight or with their business or whether it's with their emotional state. I feel like you've kind of really cracked a code that can work for a lot of people. So I'm curious what's next for you, and I'm curious, and I'm sure our listeners are curious, where can they learn more about the work you're doing, and perhaps if they want to come train with you or your teammates, what would that look like?
Yeah. What's next for me is uh, I've been taking more of a contraction approach this year instead of an expansion approach. I want to reach deeper rather than further. So my goal this year is to make a more of an important impact in someone's life as opposed to impacting many people's lives in a shallow way. So I think my approach and my goal this year is to really just hone in on what we're currently doing, hone in on the people that I'm currently working with as far as my team, and making sure that we can just create deeper roots into people's lives and actually change their ideas of themselves and their belief structures and their internal values to a point where we can create a community that is a very powerful one that is really all about family and strength and transformation and happiness, right? And those things all lead to greater health, and I think that's really important. And I do think that that's something that's really missing in life in general right now. Another thing, with regards to um, how people can find me, obviously, is they can check me out on Instagram at Call Me Coach John. I have a newsletter that I post once a week, and I have obviously my Instagram. You'll find a lot of cool stories and reels on there about me talking about my journey or just giving tips about some of the experiences I've had or seen with clientele. And I do obviously go into multiple subjects from being a business owner to being a father and a husband, as well as the challenges of transformation with your physical and mental state on a health aspect, but also on a self-worth aspect as well. And I think if anyone is looking to work with us, they can check us out at obfgyms.com, and you can just go to our contact form and reach out, and we can always make sure that we take good care of you and set you up with the right coach for you. If someone wants to work with me directly, it's probably best you directly message me on Instagram, and we can have a proper conversation to see if it would be the right fit. I'm going to be very, very deliberate with my time this year and very, very deliberate with the types of people I surround myself with. So the only clientele I'm willing to work with are going to be the right people. And I think it's going to really just come down to, are we the same energy? Do we share that energy together?
Mm-hmm.
I've got to keep my energy right now for myself, especially because I'm still going through this journey. So I've got to be very deliberate in that aspect. But yeah.
That's beautiful, man. Very, very wise. No surprise your last name is Wiseman, right? So I love that. And then are there any particular health goals that you have that you're striving for? Do you feel like there's more that you're reaching for
I
personally?
I think I've achieved where I want. I think I've achieved my goal. I think I'm where I want to be physically. I'm where I want to be mentally, and I'm where I want to be internally, which is a great feeling. But my goal now is to continue and to not necessarily progress or push forward, but I'm going to progress and push forward because that's what continuation is, right? I'm not going to just maintain. There's no fun in that. So as far as goals physically, I think I'm going to make sure that I keep my blood pressure under control. I'm going to make sure that I lower my heart rate, my resting heart rate a little bit. And I want to During the summer, one of my goals is to start running again. I used to run with my dad when I was a kid. I really used to love that. He used to run marathons. And while I'm not going to run a marathon, I want to be able to run a 5K pretty easily. Um,
Mm.
I want to be able to do it effectively and efficiently. I'm a strange guy. My reasonings are simply I want to be able to chase my kids if I have to chase them. God forbid they're running in the wrong direction, or I need to catch up to them in any scenario. I want to be able to do that. So I think running just to get my baseline capabilities down is a great goal. And other than that, I don't want to get injured, so stay injury free. One other goal is I've really gotten to grip training lately. I think it's really fun. So I'm going to continue to strengthen my grip with all these cool little techniques and tools. And who knows, one day you might see me doing a grip competition, as those do exist and they're quite popular, surprisingly. So I've been watching them on YouTube and they look really fun. So yeah, you never know.
Amazing, amazing, brother. Well, thank you so, so much for sharing. Thanks for opening up and unpacking your journey.
Appreciate it.
And thanks for being a source of inspiration for many of us from afar. And hopefully, we'll see you in person sometime soon at an upcoming event or something like that. And until then, much gratitude, much appreciation, best wishes. And here's to continued health and success on your journey.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and I hope you have a great day. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.